The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericaempowerment.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Wouldn't it be nice to have an understanding of the landscape when life presents you great challenges? Welcome to The Mother Rising with your host, Margaret Jacobson. Margaret is here to provide you with perspectives that will allow you to navigate with clarity, confidence, and peace. You will feel inspired and empowered. Now, here is Margaret.
Welcome, everyone, to The Mother Rising. I'm your host, Margaret Jacobson, and today I'm broadcasting from Mill Valley, California, which is located just across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. And this show today is our second in our series for July on dating after divorce. Today's show is for everyone who's dealing with the fears that can stop you in your tracks around dating, either after divorce or even after a traumatic breakup, the death of a spouse or a partner. How do we reframe our dating experiences mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually? Today, I'm joined by Anabelle Bugatti. Anabelle was married at 18 to her high school sweetheart and was divorced before her 25th birthday. Anabelle holds a Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling, nationally certified counseling, and is a doctoral student in marriage and family therapy at North Central University, where she's establishing a doctoral thesis on mama's boys in marriage and divorce. And Anabelle is a fellow contributing relationship expert of mine on Your Tango. Anabelle is calling in today from Las Vegas, Nevada. Welcome, Anabelle. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Hey, I'm so excited to have another fellow expert from Your Tango on The Mother Rising. I'm so glad that you could be here.
Me too.
Yay. So one of the reasons I had, as you know, had recruited trying to get some experts to come on around dating after divorce, and you were one of the ones who had responded. One of the reasons I was so glad that you could come on this show, Anabelle, is that you really are an expert in the dating field, and that you were in the dating field for a good 5 years before you met your new husband, and it seemed like you tried just about every kind of dating that there is, right?
Absolutely.
So I thought maybe we could start with just having you share with the listeners some of the different types of dating that you did.
Well, I mean, you name it. I basically did it from, I did a lot of internet dating, and I did the free sites to the paid sites. I did probably 5 or 6 sites over a few-year period. I tried a few of them, and I dated in different pools, both in my Las Vegas area, and I also tried in Southern California, where I was also beginning my master's work. And I did speed dating. I got set up by friends, and to the random situations where you just try to pick up the guy in the produce aisle or the grocery store, or go out by yourself, and hopefully it ends up in somebody saying, "Hey, you're pretty, can I buy you a drink?" kind of thing. So
That's
I've
awesome.
basically done it all.
So one of the things that I thought when we were chatting for the first time, was really, I was new to understanding what speed dating was. So maybe you could just give a brief description of that for our listeners who aren't familiar.
Yeah, and speed dating has actually been around for a very, very long time. And a lot of people have seen it on TV in kind of cliche scenarios like the movie Hitch. But yeah, it works very similar to that. You have people who basically just show up. You have men, you have women. And usually the men stay seated and the women rotate. You're given about 2 to 3 minutes to talk about something. Usually they'll give you some really generic topic like name your ideal date, and then at the end of the rounds, they ring a bell and you move on and you keep talking to different people. And then at the end of the night, people let you know if, they write down who they felt their matches were, and you write down who you feel your matches were. And if you have the same, then you go out.
I see. Okay, great. That's good. But there's so many different forms of dating online and everything, all the different kinds that you mentioned. But one of the things that we'd also kind of discussed was that there are some real general fears that kind of are pretty consistent that come up for people. And you've done a great job of kind of laying some of those out. So I thought, we could just kind of talk through some of them together. But the first one that is such a huge one for so many people is really feeling like there's a scarlet instead of a scarlet letter on them that basically says D, divorced.
Yes.
So what were your thoughts on that?
And that's a really common feeling. I know I certainly felt like it. You feel like as soon as you get out of the divorce that there's a sign that's on your forehead that says, hello, I'm divorced. Get away from me. And it's not really like that at all. Nobody knows, it's really up to you to disclose that. And that's what people they feel like it's obvious, like it's glowering off of them. And, when you get out there in the dating field, there are a lot of other divorcees out there who are in the same pool, and they're just trying to find love and get that second chance. And it's really not as bad as you think that it would be. It's common just to feel like, okay, now I'm damaged. I've been tainted. My perfect relationship scorecard has been tainted by divorce. Now somebody's going to think, oh, she's incapable of having a serious relationship, or what's wrong with her because her husband wanted to divorce or whatever. But people really don't look at it like that at all. I mean, they know relationships don't work out. And I actually have a few male friends who are single, and I've asked them, would you date a divorced female? Or, if a woman was interested in you and she was divorced, do you have any, would you think that, oh, she's no good or anything? They said, no, absolutely not. In fact, it's the opposite. We would think, well, she's already been in a committed relationship, so we know that she knows what it takes. She's been to the circus, seen all the strings, and obviously she knows what goes into commitment, and she's willing to commit because she's already been married once. So.
And that's I just spoke with a woman who is the real matchmaker in San Francisco. I don't know if you've heard of the real matchmaker, but she's they kind of combine some kinds of online dating and in-person dating and really dating coaching and stuff. But she said the exact same thing. She said that the men that she had talked to, and this was mostly with men, and I would have to assume that it was similar with women, but that they took that as a sign of real strength. Like, this woman knows what it's like to be married, and she also, if she's willing to commit, she's really serious because she's already been through this.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
I thought that was interesting. Now, another one of the fears that comes up for people is this, really, how do you know if your date really only wants to get laid? and that's like, it's a pretty big, because you're going back in, you're scared, you're not sure when. Tell me about your thoughts around that.
Well, especially if you've been married for a long time, you've kind of been out of practice in the dating field, and, those kinds of things do tend to change over time, especially for someone like me. I entered into marriage when I was basically still a kid. Dating when you're in high school is much different than when you're dating as an adult. I get out and I'm 25, and now I need to date in the adult world, so it was much different, and it's easy when you've been out of the game. You're a little naive to how these things work, and you get taken advantage of, especially if you are definitely shopping for a new relationship. And, a lot of guys know how to dangle the perfect carrots out in front of your face. Oh, I want a family and a house and a white picket fence. Oh, really? Oh my gosh, it's so easy to fall for that. And, I've learned over time, some guys are very upfront with it. You can usually fish it out if you've only been emailing or texting back and forth. If they're like really hardcore to go just to the sack, they're going to come out with it almost right away. They'll try to engage you in some kind of dirty talk or sexting. Had a few men do that on Match.com, actually. I had somebody do that, and And he was like, well, isn't that all people get on here to do is hook up? I was like, hello, no, this is a relationship site.
Yeah.
But, you know, I learned over time that within the first 3 dates, they're going to try to invite you over to their place or come up to your place and start making out. And, you know, they'll really advance the moves forward. And that's a real telltale sign if they want you to come over and they just want to, you know, if they're not cool with just hanging out and drinking wine and having conversation and it continues from there, you know, then you know. But if they're inviting you over, or even if you go out for a walk, I actually had a guy, you know, I invited him over to dinner at the house, and then we went for a walk around the park, and he tried to, you know, French kiss me, and I was like, whoa, that's, you know, this is the second time I'm meeting this guy. I'm like, okay, that's a little too forward. And he was like, well, you know, I thought we could, you know, mess around a little bit. And I thought, okay, that is way, way too soon, way too hard for this. And he said, well, you know, we got nothing but time. Like, yeah, exactly. So what's the rush? And, you know, needless to say, it didn't go to a second date after that. And he voiced that he was very disappointed that I wouldn't mess around with him. But the guys that just want to mess around, it will become very clear. So if you're, you know, don't be too eager to jump in the sack. I know and the first kiss is really exciting, but it's easy for that to escalate from there. And if a guy starts, you know, putting his hand up your thigh or on your top, you know really fast. And, you know, if he's trying to push you for between dates 1 through 5 to move forward physically, you know that's all he wants. So if you can hang on and resist that temptation, you'll find out awfully quick if he really wants to date and get to know you or if he just wants to have fun.
I love it. Yeah. And I think that there's like an interesting dynamic too that kind of plays into that as far as just really kind of creates this really, if you're, well, there's 2 things I want to say. One is it's okay to have the sexual cravings. It's okay to like want to just have sex with somebody. And that's a totally separate conversation than what we're talking about here. Yeah. So just to keep that like as a separate thing. And I'll probably dive into that next week just to prepare listeners. I'll explain that at the end of the show, but I have someone coming in to talk really about safe sex and all of those things. So we can kind of explore that a little more there. But secondly, around just a male-female relationship, there's really an interesting, beautiful play that there is between each other when you can really not be just, you know, doing everything that they want as far as, you know, the sex, you know, leaving a little bit to be mysterious and to be waited for, you know.
And if you have, you know, plenty of time to date and get to know each other, why rush the sex? Because nothing taints the relationship than jumping into bed too early. And if you want to know if the guy is really interested in you, the best thing to do is hang on the sex, because a lot of people hang on to really poisonous and toxic relationships for good sex. You know?
Yes. And the emotional, there is no denying the fact that once you, if you're engaging in building a relationship and that's your intention and, you know, at the outset of the date, which, you know, in this case, we're talking about it being that way, then when you do actually engage in sexual intercourse together, then there's an emotional tie that's just, it's going to happen for you. And maybe that wasn't the other person's intention. And therefore it can be, like you said, something you're going to hang on to.
Yeah. As much as we'd like to deny it, you know, sex is an intimate bonding experience and is meant to enhance the intimacy and the bonding and the closeness of a relationship and bring you closer. And some people engage in that when they're not ready for that. And there are people, both men and women, who engage in it just for the sex, you know, a lot of times just for the pursuit of the game, the trophy, you know, I got another one. But, you know, other people, they really feel like, man, this person really wants me. They're engaging me in sex. They feel sexy, and it feels good to feel that way again. But then, you know, once they get what they want, it's true. They really, you know, they stop texting you as much. They're not as eager to get together. And, then they're going out with other people, and you're like, well, what happened? I thought this was moving forward. And they're like, no, it was just whatever.
Right,
So
right.
that's a big dating trap.
So,
the guys who really just want sex will be super forward within the first few dates.
So keep that in mind, listeners, as you're going out on dates. Just pay attention to some of those little red flags around that if that's not what you're interested in. We're going to go to a break in a couple minutes, but maybe you could start explaining to listeners, just get going on it, and I might have to interrupt you, and I apologize in advance, but who pays on the date? And you have such an interesting perspective on this, Anabelle. I would love for you to share your perspective.
Well, I'm an old-fashioned girl, so and I know, dating to a point still follows some old-fashioned rituals where the man generally pays on the first date. However, I feel that whoever asks the date should pay for the date. At least come prepared. So, if you ask a guy out to coffee or to dinner or to lunch, whatever, you should offer to pay. Now, if he's a really awesome guy, he'll probably step up and pay anyway. But you should at least, if you're the one asking, you should pay for it. Absolutely. Yeah. And if he asks you to go Dutch, there's probably not going to be a second date. I mean, who does Dutch anymore when you're on a date? It's just really rude and tacky, I think.
I think that's so interesting. I love it. And I, one of the things that I'll just share my personal experience with that is I had made it very clear when I went on Match.com that I was not interested in an intimate relationship at the moment. And so when I did go on a date and was asked out, I really felt it was a good idea for me to just pay for myself when I went out. He had asked me, but I really wanted to pay because I just didn't want there to be any implication of anything, But that was that situation.
It's always good just to offer, if you both mutually decided, okay, we're both ready and interested to meet in person. Let's go out. Okay, so you go out. First of all, if you don't feel that you can afford, if you really would like to go to a nice restaurant. Hang on 1 second, because we're going to go to a quick break, okay? And I'm going to have you share that as soon as we come back, okay? All right.
You're listening to The Mother Rising. My guest today is Anabelle Bugatti. We're going to cut to a commercial break for just a moment. We'll be right back.
As we begin to embrace our lives fully, living authentically and growing beyond our wildest dreams, we can find ourselves inspired to push harder, do more, and climb higher. Whether you're preparing to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, training for a bike race in the Rocky Mountains, or simply taking a trip to the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado, don't let altitude sickness slow you down. Take Altogen. Altogen harnesses the power of natural adaptogenic herbs to empower your body to accept the replenishing power of oxygen. Step by step, pedal by pedal, flight by flight, breathe in your life deeply and feed your spirit as you rise higher and higher. Play hard, breathe easy, perform better. Take Altogen. To find out more about Altogen and how it can assist you at higher altitudes, go to www.getaltogen.com. Have you ever noticed that sometimes life just feels easier, especially when judgment of you or anyone else ceases to exist? What if you could function from that space all the time? What if gratitude is the key? Every time you are grateful for someone or something, a new universe opens up. What difference can you create in your life and the world from the energy, space, and consciousness of gratitude? Join us on Access Consciousness Presents Beyond Saying Thank You every Tuesday at 12 noon Pacific Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.
Do you or somebody you love have a struggle with abuse? You don't need to be a slave to your abuse anymore. Listen for Beyond Abuse, Beyond Therapy, Beyond Anything with Dr. Lisa Cooney. Dr. Lisa overcame struggles in her own life. 2 decades of sexual, emotional, and physical abuse nearly took their toll. In her 20s, she turned her life around and set upon a path to help others. She can help you find the key to take control of your life, too. Listen every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. You are listening to The Mother Rising with your host, Margaret Jacobson. Become a part of the Mother Rising community. Join Margaret on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. Or send Margaret an email at mom@themotherrising.com to request information on joining the Mother Rising's online private community forum. Now, back to this week's program.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Margaret Jacobson with The Mother Rising, and today I'm joined by Anabelle Bugatti, doctoral candidate in marriage and family therapy and dating expert extraordinaire. Anabelle, I'm so sorry I had to interrupt you before the break, but if you could explain that we were just talking about who's paying for the date. If you could pick up where you were so that people could hear your answer, that'd be great.
Okay. So as I was relating, if you're on a dating site or you're talking to somebody and you both mutually decide to go out somewhere, it's always polite. This is just good manners. Do the reach, offer, hey, can I pay for myself? It's just polite and good manners and communicates to the guy that you're out with or the girl that, you had no expectation of making them bear the weight of the bill. Now, somebody who's a true gentleman or a true lady probably will take on the entire bill, or if you were the one who asked them out on the date, it is best manners. So we're talking manners. I know a lot of people don't have a lot of those these days, but if you want to be really awesome, if you're the person who asked the other one on the date, you should be the one who should pay. It just seems, and if you would like to go out on a really nice restaurant, don't ask outside of your budget. If you don't think that you can afford, even though you're hoping and likely thinking that they'll pick up the bill, which they may, it's always safer to pick a restaurant that's within your budget. So then if in case they don't take the bill from you, you can make sure that you can afford it, because nothing's more embarrassing than, oh, shoot, my credit card got rejected.
Oh, my gosh. I love this. Is such great info because these give really very clear tips to people that are just kind of out there, just starting to consider getting back into the field, and I think you have a really good perspective on it. I think that it shows a lot of true respect for yourself and for the other person, which is really the foundation of what you want to start with somebody anyway.
Yeah, and it really helps diffuse awkward situations, which reaching for the bill is often quite awkward. So usually it kind of sits on the table, and one of you, if he doesn't grab for it at first, eventually okay, this guy's not even going to offer, then that might be an indication of his character. And if he certainly doesn't offer, I'm probably not going to go out on a second date with him. But, it's always polite just to do the stretch. And eventually one of you will be like, okay, we need to take care of this. So should I pay for my bill? And it has a way of sorting itself out naturally. But sometimes it's really awkward, especially if they don't even offer, they don't even reach for it. But that will give you a big clue as to whether or not you want to go to date number 2. So. Right.
And I think,
and if you've gone on a date before with somebody, it's always, or if you've gone on 2 or 3 dates and they've paid most of the time, try to offer to treat them to something, because you don't want them to feel like you're expecting them always to pay, and if you make significantly less money than them, offer to pay for a movie or an ice cream or, just something small that you can chip in so it communicates to them, see, I care, and I'd like to treat you to things too, and I don't expect you to pay all the time, but men are still chivalrous. Chivalry is not dead.
Well, and I think there's an interesting piece of that, and again, I think it'll be interesting to hear what this woman that will be at the end of the month that's coming on that does the professional matchmaking. Mm-hmm. She has some interesting insights as well, but the dynamic between male and female, and there are just now, we've been, this is like a totally separate issue, but we've been so, as women, being in the workforce and being mothers and caregivers and nurturers and community builders, and also working, that sometimes we've stepped out of that space where it is our natural tendency to receive as well. And it's also a man's natural tendency to be in that more of a provider, position. And I don't mean that in a way that is disempowering to women. And that's why I really like what you're saying, as far as if you're if you're in there and you can't necessarily afford it, or even if you can, offer sometimes. Own the fact that you're a contributing member of the growing relationship.
Absolutely. And it just, like I said, helps diffuse some awkward moments when it comes to the bill, and it sets you both up for mutual respect. Even if one of you ends up paying more than the other, which oftentimes happens, it becomes a normal dance, but and usually the one who makes the most money will end up paying the most. But it's always nice. It's an act of respect and it's courtesy, and there's certainly nothing wrong with allowing the man to pay. It doesn't disempower women at all. It's nice. And men, they like to provide. It's that innate male part of them that wants to hunt, except we're not hunting and gathering days anymore. So that's the way that they provide for the women, and it builds their ego. And if a man feels good, he's going to want to continue to help you feel good, so.
Yeah. Nice. So, okay, now this seems to me, now I know you didn't have kids when you were in your first marriage, but
I made an active decision not to procreate because I knew our marriage was on the rocks. So I made an active decision not to bring them in while that was going on.
Good choice. That's great. But this is like a huge question for so many people that have been divorced and have children from their marriage. They're very concerned, that the person they're going to date isn't going to want to date them because they have kids. But I like what you have said about this. So could you share that with everyone?
Absolutely. And having children is not necessarily a deal breaker. And if it is, better you find out now than later. Right. Better you find out before they meet the kids, before the kids become attached to them. But, because dating somebody with kids, and it's not that you're unattractive or we couldn't possibly think of kids. It's just, if you're somebody who's never had kids and maybe, you're in a younger demographic, you're just building your career, taking on a new relationship and possibly getting married to that person is a big life change in and of itself. But then you're also bringing on a second dynamic of parenthood. And it's not only parenthood, it's your first-time parenthood, but this isn't even a child that you got to take part in creating and birthing and seeing from infancy. Somebody else did all that, and now this child has already been partially raised, and there's a lot of implications. Are they going to like me as a parent? If my partner's child hates me, are they going to want to date me? And children are a good sense of character, but if a person is really interested in you, it will not stop them. And a lot of people understand now, because there is so much divorce, because there are a lot of single parents, blended families, it's very common. So don't knock yourself out of the game. Don't judge that somebody else is not going to want to date you just because you have kids, because you're making that decision for them, which really isn't fair. And you could be denying yourself the ability and a chance to get to know some really great people. And there are a lot of great people out there who maybe even have a child of their own, and, like the Brady Bunch, but in smaller quantity, and it's a good thing. So, it doesn't knock you out of the game for sure, but when you are dating and you do have kids, be very careful of the relationship. Be very careful of someone who's too eager to meet your kids too soon. And listen to your kids. If they feel that something's not right about this person, kids are very, very good judge of character. But then you also need to be leery of children who are just resistant to any adult who's not their biological parent as well, So it's a delicate balance, but I think you'll know when the time is right to introduce the children, not too soon. But wait till you're sure that this is somebody that you've both actively made the decision. We want to be in a relationship. We'd like to get to know each other. Let's take this to the next level and see how this works out with the kids,
And I have a quick little funny story too. When I was dating on Match.com, and like I said, I was really wanting just platonic friendship. And funny little tidbit on that was that my dad had suggested that I really get back out and not date per se, but to hang out with some male friends or make some male friends, because he saw me hanging out with all my girlfriends, all my friends that were lesbians, and he's like, you need just like someone to go have coffee with. And he was so right. So anyway, I had signed up for Match.com, and it was kind of one of those things, you go through your profile, and wanted to be really honest about who I was and what I was looking for, not give anyone false hope. But it was a little bit of Pandora's box the next morning, because then all of a sudden I had this inbox full of kind of mini solicitations or possibilities. And I thought, oh no, this is like just this is not what I need. Another thing to manage in my life. I didn't think about this, but when I ended up meeting this one person, and we had gone out several times, and he had a child as well that was right around the same age as my oldest son. He had a daughter. We decided we'd go out together, because we were just friendly, and we went to an art and wine festival. And then the funny thing was that my oldest and his daughter sort of liked each other. And I thought, oh, that's so funny. Like, oh, gee, how'd you guys meet? Oh, well, our parents were on Match.com, But anyway,
an interesting spin-off site.
Exactly. But anyway, it was actually really, in that sense, enjoyable for me to be able to have another grown-up that I could go and do things with that was, of the opposite sex, and that our kids could do something.
There's a lot of people in your shoes who want to get out there and not necessarily go straight on into dating, but kind of want to inch into it, maybe start out by meeting platonic friends and get used to socializing with other adults their age, with just being reintegrated into the field socially, because maybe, they've been married for a while and they've only been with their husband, and they've been only with their married friends and doing married things and just staying at home. And so they don't have a social network that extends to single people and how that whole dynamic works. So there is a really, really good site. It's called Meetup.com. It's a professional site where people can go. You can join things like mommy's groups if you want to meet other moms, get together, do mommy things. There's hiking groups. If you want to get together, do hiking. They have pet groups where you can get together and do things with your dogs. You have wine tasting. They have people who like to go to movies. You can even do Toastmasters on there. I mean, there's so many groups out there. And
I'm a big fan of meetups. And in fact, I'll just say a plug. Keep your eyes out, because there's going to be a Mother Rising Meetup.com too.
Excellent. Well, good to know. Yeah. So that's a great way to get into it, because Meetup.com is not a dating site per se. I'm sure there probably are groups in there somewhere for people to join if they want to find dates. But just start out with a group that has the social interest that you're interested in, and go and hang out and socialize with people. And you never know. It's a good way just to be around people, and being around people is how you meet people. And, oh, that guy's single, and we happen to talk and be interested. So, without
and there are some, you can even type in their single parents. There's I know in Marin County, where I live in Northern California, there's a North Bay single parents group that's really wonderful. And there's, people that just get together for hikes, and it's things they do kind of with some of them are without the kids. A lot of them are with the kids, but, I would totally agree. I'm really glad you brought that up, Anabelle.
Yeah, and it's all across the country. I mean, I did it here in Las Vegas, and I was living in New York for a couple of years, and I did Toastmasters in New York. And, I mean, now if you are dating somebody and they're on Meetup.com, don't freak out and think that they're on there for dating, because, like I said, that's not what it's for. It's a place to meet platonic and professional friends, but you can also kind of kill two birds with one stone and ease yourself into the field and meet people and be around people without, because dating sites like Match.com and Plenty of Fish and Zeus and all these other things, are specifically for dating. So when you get on there, people have one thing on their mind and one thing only, and that's dating. So, you may not want to be solicited nonstop, but like I said, you'd rather ease into it and just maybe casually bump into somebody who wasn't necessarily on the prowl, because your mindset is a little different when you're on the prowl versus I'm just here being social and hanging out, and I happen to bump into somebody who's also single and we share interests. So
Awesome. Really good. Yeah. And so the nice thing about that too is you can kind of pick like different activities that you like to do. I mean, you mentioned also like professional, there's a ton of professional stuff, which is
even church groups.
Would you say?
Even church groups.
Even church groups. Yeah. Religious affiliations,
spiritual meditation, yoga, everything.
Yeah, so that's great. Cool. Really good. We're going to go to a break in just a minute, but when we come back, I thought it would be great because it'll be our last segment, Anabelle, if we could kind of go through and really talk about how dating and learning about yourself and the powerful impact that has and why that's so important. Does that sound good to you?
Absolutely.
Awesome. You're listening to The Mother Rising. My guest today is Anabelle Bugatti. We're going to go to a break for a moment, and we'll be right back.
Question: what's working and what's not working in your life? Though we resolve each year to do things differently, and we want what's great for our businesses, our relationships, our health, and more, we don't always know where to turn when life gets tough. That's where Leading Life Large with host Rob Braun comes in. Our show challenges you to reevaluate where you are and keep pushing your way to the success you desire. If you want it bad enough, we can help you turn your life around. Leading Life Large airs Mondays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern on Voice America Empowerment. As we begin to embrace our lives fully, living authentically and growing beyond our wildest dreams, we can find ourselves inspired to push harder, do more, and climb higher. Whether you're preparing to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, training for a bike race in the Rocky Mountains, or simply taking a trip to the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado, don't let altitude sickness slow you down. Take Altogen. Altogen harnesses the power of natural adaptogenic herbs to empower your body to accept the replenishing power of oxygen. Step by step, pedal by pedal, flight by flight, breathe in your life deeply and feed your spirit as you rise higher and higher. Play hard, breathe easy, perform better. Take Altogen. To find out more about Altogen and how it can assist you at higher altitudes, go to www.getaltogen.com.
Have you figured out what's not working in your business and why? Could you use a little help? Join your host Tamaran for Let's Figure It Out Intimately. Tamaran was struggling with the same issue, so she hired other business coaches and experts to help her see what she couldn't. Her journey is to keep learning, and she is here to share this with you so that we can all keep working together. Let's Figure It Out Intimately airs live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. We all want peace. We all desire a more meaningful life. We work hard to achieve these things, but at what avail? The key is authentic living with Andrea Matthews. Andrea will interview some of the great spiritual experts of today and will provide wisdom to help you raise your consciousness to the level of your own I am. Your authenticity can give you miraculous gifts, but you have to know how to get there. Listen for Authentic Living with Andrea Matthews. Heard live every Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time on the Seventh Wave Network.
You are listening to The Mother Rising with your host, Margaret Jacobson. Become a part of the Mother Rising community. Join Margaret on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, or send Margaret an email at mom@themotherrising.com to request information on joining the Mother Rising's online private community forum. Now, back to this week's program.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Margaret Jacobson with The Mother Rising, and today I'm joined by Anabelle Bugatti, doctoral candidate in marriage and family therapy and dating expert extraordinaire. And Anabelle and I were just speaking before the break about oh my gosh, my brain just went dead for just a second. We were talking about meetups. That was the last piece of it. Online dating, meetups, and that type of thing. And what we really want to wrap up with in this last segment of the show is something that both Anabelle and I feel very strongly about, and that's really taking dating as, right after you're coming out of a relationship, out of divorce, or again, if you've had a loss of a spouse or a partner, that really, this is a time to learn about yourself. So Anabelle, why don't you start and just chat about that for a few minutes?
Absolutely. And if you're getting out of a divorce and you're starting to date again, you want to make sure that you dealt with your divorce or relationship baggage. And that's very, very important. The way you do that is through self-reflection. You really got to take this time to explore you, because if you do not deal with that baggage, it will deal with you, and it will come out in ugly ways in the dating scenario, and you could, potentially chase away people who could have been a great partner for you. But, and I was guilty of this. I certainly learned this lesson the hard way, but, I thought, because I was very at peace with my divorce, and I knew it was the best thing, and I dealt with the emotional aspect of it. I was confident. Felt like I was in a really healthy place, but then, I got into a new relationship, and, I felt like, oh gosh, this guy's perfect for me. He's everything my ex-husband wasn't, and, this is perfect. I met the right guy, and I just became really clingy because I was kind of coming from this desperate place. I thought, oh, shoot, even though I was only 25, little did I know, I felt like I was in a race against a time clock. I got to get out there and get remarried again and find the perfect guy, because we got to date for a couple of years before we get married, and I don't want to be old. So, it was so silly. I had all the time in the world, but I felt rushed. And so I had this desperation about me, and I became very needy and extremely clingy. And I suffocated this guy, and I chased him out, and I kept trying to get him back and kept trying to get him back. And I ended up twisting myself into a pretzel to become everything I thought I needed to be to keep this guy, just because I thought he was perfect for me. And, when the relationship ended, it ended horribly. And, he was a mama's boy. That is inspiring my my dissertation work. He actually had his mother break up with me for him, which is totally sad and very pathetic.
Wow, that blows me away.
Yes, and I was so hurt, and I knew, because we had broken up several times and gotten back together, and it was very cyclical, off and on for 2 years, and each time I was so hurt, and I would go to the self-help books. What am I doing wrong? What can I be doing? And I did a lot of good work on myself. I took it a little bit to an extreme, because I didn't recognize my value and my worth, and I didn't stick to my own boundaries, and I compromised them. And this guy saw me compromising my own boundaries, and that gave him permission to compromise my boundaries. And so that just became a very toxic situation. By the time I got out of the relationship, I didn't even recognize myself. I thought, all these things that I did to keep this guy is not me. It's not me at all. Why did I do these things? So I actually got therapy, which was the best thing for me, because I wanted to deal with the relationship and heal and get over it as quickly as possible with as minimal baggage as I could. And I did 10 sessions, and it was a magnificent transformation. I really looked inward, and I found some things that caused me to be a pleaser. I was becoming a pleaser person, somebody who will do anything to keep everyone around them happy. You kind of become a chameleon, and you change with each person. And I thought, that's not being a strong sense of self. And when you're dating, especially online dating, you've got nothing to lose. You've got a profile. You're not actually seeing any of these people face to face. So you can hide behind that profile and actually put the truth about yourself on there. And if you really want to be accepted and loved and have someone take you for who you are and not all these add-ons that you think you need to do to yourself to get somebody, just put it out there straight and allow somebody to come to you and accept you for who you are. And they will, but you have to really look at yourself or you will damage your own happiness and get in your own way. And it just causes a lot of unhealth. And believe me, that desperation, that needy, comes across very plainly to other people. It's the way you carry yourself, the way you engage people. It's just very clear to them when you're desperate and needy. And it really chases away people, very scary. And it can end up you'll end up attracting the wrong kind of people that you don't want to attract. So.
And I think that is so great. There's a couple things I want to say about what you just shared, which this was wonderful. Thank you for sharing that piece of your relationship. Appreciate it. One is that we talked before that kind of feeling of neediness is really can be hard. Like you're not necessarily focused on that. There's so many things when you're going through a divorce or you're just after or you're dealing with your kids or whatever, that if you don't have space to reflect and find out about you, that you don't necessarily notice it. But the more you can kind of create a space, and I love that for you, it was going to get therapy. And that can be really powerful for so many people, like being able to pinpoint like certain events in your life or different things about how you're raised or whatever. It can be really big eye openers for really finally making the choice to go, oh, I see why I've been doing that in a patterned way, and I don't have to choose that pattern. I actually have more options,
Yes. And that's one thing that people need to know is that these things will only be effective for you if you're willing to look at yourself honestly and ask yourself the hard questions. You have to be willing to look at your faults, examine the feedback that you've gotten from dates or other relationships as to negative qualities, maybe that you've heard several times over, and think about, okay, what kind of behaviors was I doing that would elicit a response like that? Okay, now, where was that behavior coming from? It's not necessarily always going to be you, but none of us are innocent in relationships, and a lot of times we do things and we're not even aware. And even while you're just, being single and not engaged in a relationship and you deal with your inner demons and you face down your baggage, deal with it as much as you can, but there's still an element of it that you can't deal with it until you have another relationship. Just like I used to be very, very clingy. I went through therapy and I became very independent because I recognized my own worth and value and stopped compromising myself. And I learned to be happy with being by myself. There's a difference between being alone and being by yourself. And being by yourself. And a good friend pointed this out to me because sometimes I would sit at home on a weekend and I would have no plans and everyone else was going out and I had like a little pity party and I'm like, why? I feel like a loser. I have no date for Saturday night and, but other people are like, well, just take yourself to a movie. And I'm like, I would never sit in a theater by myself. Gosh, that's like the kiss of social death, But it's really not. And I was judging myself. And a friend said, is it really true? Is there not somebody you could call up and get to go to the movies with you? And I thought, well, yeah, there is this guy who wanted to go out with me, but I really didn't like him, or this guy, but, So they're like, well, exactly. You are not forcibly having to stay home and have no plans. You are choosing to do so because you know that those people are not worth your time and it's not worth it to go out with just anybody so that you can have plans. And when you remember that, then you remember you're not a loser. You're making a choice that's better for yourself. And it's okay to be at home on a weekend and be doing your own thing. It does not mean you're a loser. It's okay to go to a sushi restaurant and sit at the sushi bar and enjoy a meal by yourself. To think about it, I used to sit there and and judge myself and say, okay, I'm going to look like a total loser if I'm sitting at that sushi bar by myself. But then I thought, well, if I see somebody there by themselves, and am I judging them and saying, oh, gosh, they're a loser? No, absolutely not. I'm thinking, gosh, I wish I could do that. Well, guess what? I can do that. So if I'm not judging other people, then why am I assuming that they're judging me?
So,
you got to challenge the evidence.
I love that what you had like such a massive breakthrough in just realizing that you were choosing thoughts that were disempowering you. And then you when you realized that there was a choice in how you perceived it or how you interpreted, what you were doing or even physically what you were choosing to go do or not do.
Absolutely.
Then it was like you could own it. Like, okay, I'm choosing to stay home. Okay, so maybe I'm going to choose to make myself a nice meal tonight. There's more value. There's more. It's you're more attentive to honoring and respecting yourself. It's really disrespectful when you feel like these things are being done to you.
Yes, and it helps you become comfortable in your own skin. If you're out in public and you're not comfortable being by yourself, it's going to be very obvious. So, if you're sitting there at a restaurant by yourself and you look awkward, people are going to think you're awkward. They're not going to want to come up to you and approach you and say, hey, I noticed you're sitting alone. But if you, learn to enjoy, a great meal at a restaurant, and you don't have to have a seat filler just so that you don't have to look like you're there by yourself, be comfortable, and that you'll attract people who are attracted to your confidence. And it's a great thing, but you have to be willing to look inward and challenge the evidence. Look at the thoughts that you are telling yourself. Find out where are the root of these thoughts. Who's telling me these? Is somebody else telling me that I'm a loser, or am I telling myself that I'm a loser? And where is the evidence? How can I challenge that? And what is my perspective on other people in the same situation? Why is it, and this is very true, we tend to apply double standards to ourselves. We don't look at other people that way, yet we assume that everybody's looking at us that way, and it's not fair to yourself.
And did you say you toyed a little bit with the work of Byron Katie, or no? I can't remember.
A little bit. But, the best book I found for that actually was The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. And he just had a great philosophy where he said, a lot of people feel like I'm not whole until I get a husband, until I get a new car, until I get a better job. And for me, it was that husband thing, And so you're walking around like you have a deficit. And not having those things is creating a deficit, whereas you should learn to be happy with who you are, with what you have, as you are, and then not having them won't create a deficit, but once you get them, it will add. So not having it won't take away, it'll only add, which is very powerful.
So surrounding ourselves, and I know I believe we're getting towards the end of the segment, but just want to encourage listeners at this moment, to really go seek out some good reading like The Art of Happiness, or go to your bookstore, go to your library, see what is inspiring you to learn more about you, about how you tick, about creating a space for quiet reflection. That's something I do often in my practice with my clients is. I'm sorry, not often, always, like always, because you just can't move everything quickly, unless you do that.
Right, and take the time to reflect on maybe negative habits you had in your relationships and find a way to correct those or to better them. Just take this time to better yourself, because you will only attract the right partner by being the right partner. It sounds cliche, but it's absolutely true. When you are 100% healthy and fulfilled, you will attract somebody who's also healthy and fulfilled, and that's ultimately what you want. You've got to be willing to ask yourself those hard questions, really look inside at what's going on, what are your motivations, what are you willing to tolerate, what are you willing to be flexible on, and what are deal breakers for you. Figure out what elements of your past relationship you did not like, and that you want to make sure that you try not to find those same qualities in somebody else if they didn't work for you. And it's okay to be attracted to same qualities that your partner had. Your partner may have been a great partner. You may have been totally in love with him, but for whatever reason it didn't work out. That doesn't mean that if you go and seek out somebody like them that it won't turn out well. Just think about what worked, what didn't work, and set that in your mind. Okay, I'm going to seek these things out, and I'm not going to seek these things out. So.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, great. And we are wrapping up. Darn it, that I just looked up and the time has totally escaped us. I can't believe it, Anabelle. This has been
we can do like 5 shows on this.
I know. No, we really could. And so, Anabelle, I want to be sure that can people get in touch with you if they have a question or anything?
Absolutely.
What would be the best way?
If you go to my Your Tango page, just go to yourtango.com and search Anabelle Bugatti. You'll find me on there. There's email. There might even be a phone number, but email's generally the fastest way. I get it to my phone. So if you have a question, I have had plenty of people contact me, and I usually try to get back with them as quickly as possible. So, yeah.
Yay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And for everyone, just hold the line for just a minute. Everyone who is interested, again, go to Your Tango, YOUR Tango, TANGO.com. Search under Anabelle Bugatti, BUGATTI, and she'll have her contact information. And I'm really just want to say I'm so grateful for all of those of you who are part of the rapidly growing Mother Rising community. Thank you all for tuning in live and listening via download and podcast. If you're listening through iTunes, be sure to stop by the iTunes store and leave a review of the Mother Rising podcast. Helps me out immensely. Or stay in touch with the Mother Rising more frequently and join me on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. I love maintaining a connection with you. I've officially relaunched the Mother Rising website, so check that out and sign up for the Mother Rising Manifesto at themotherrising.com. I just want you to stay tuned for the coming weeks about all the announcements for a lot of new exciting things that will be happening on the Mother Rising. But next week, I'll be joined by Kate McCombs. She is a New York City-based sex educator, writer, and maker of puns. Kate and I will be discussing safe sex after divorce, pregnancy prevention, and sexual enjoyment, both in your dating and new relationships. Kate's so open and down to earth. I know you're going to love it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on this show. I look forward to having you back next week on the Mother Rising. Until then, honor yourself, celebrate your strength, and empower your transformation.
Thank you so much for listening this week. You can tune in to the Mother Rising every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Margaret Jacobson hopes to speak with you again next week.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program brought to you on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericaempowerment.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.